Hello Samwanya, hello everyone, my name is Alan and welcome to my YouTube channel. So for today's video, I will be reacting to the video suggestion of Muhammad Fauzi87. So shout out to Mr. Muhammad for suggesting this video to me. In my past video, I did his reaction video, so thank you for suggesting this video. The comment of his suggestion is React Tagalog similar to Bahasa Indonesia. So, the video title of this video is How Similar Are Tagalog and Indonesian. By the way, before we start this video, I know some common Tagalog and Indonesian words, but there are some common words but they have the different meanings. So in this video, I will be knowing the similarities of words of Filipino Tagalog and Bahasa Indonesia. So without further ado, let this video started.
This video is brought to you by Innovative Language, the creators of Indonesian Pod 101 and Filipino Pod 101. Click the link in the description to check out their huge collection of audio and video lessons for students of all levels.
Yes, if you want to
Hello
learn
everyone,
Filipino
welcome to the
Indonesian,
Langfocus
just go
channel,
to
and my name is
Pod.
Paul. Today we're going to compare Tagalog, otherwise known as Filipino, the lingua franca of the Philippines.
By the way guys, if you're going to Filipino Pod 101, the Tagalog words that are being taught on that video is very formal. It's like we Filipinos have watched their tutorials on how to say a basic Tagalog words and phrases, and it's a little bit formal for us because we Filipinos are usually mixing Tagalog and English words. I don't literally mean that we are mixing Tagalog words into English. No, we are like connecting some Tagalog phrases into English phrases to make a particular sentence. So that is the modern Tagalog right now. But if we say two formal Filipino Tagalog words, it's like you're going back to the 1800s, like something like that, because um, it's very formal for us, but it is a good thing for the foreigners for learning a new language, because if they are learning like modern Tagalog, like mixing Filipino and English to have a sentence, is a little bit too hard. So they need to learn formal Filipino in order for them to know such a Taglish or Tagalog English combination of sentences that are being used now here in the Philippines. And also we have different kinds of dialects here in the Philippines, but um, if you are curious about learning those different dialects like Cebuano and Bisaya, then you can go for it, but I will suggest you to try to learn Tagalog also. So let's continue.
Philippines and Indonesian, the lingua franca of Indonesia, the most widely spoken variety of Malay. Basically everything I say about Indonesian in this video will also apply to Malay, because their standard forms are very close to each other, aside from some different vocabulary. But
Yes,
since
Malaysia,
I'm more
Brunei,
familiar
and
with
Singapore
Indonesian, the samples in this video will focus
are
on
related
Indonesian.
also into
Tagalog on the
Indonesia.
one hand and Indonesian and other forms of Malay on the other are not mutually intelligible, but native speakers of either language often say that they feel they should be able to understand the other language, but they can't. This is
Yes.
probably due to their similar pronunciation and intonation,
intonation.
and they might also hear some similar words in the other language, partly because of the common origins of the two languages. Malay, including Indonesian, since they're essentially the same language, and Tagalog are both members of the malayo-polynesian branch of the Austronesian language family. That means they developed from the same language, Proto-Malayo-Polynesian, from which all members of that branch descended. Speakers of Proto-Malayo-Polynesian first migrated from Taiwan to northern Luzon in the Philippines before spreading out across much of maritime Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Most of the languages of Philippines, and most of the languages of Malaysia and Indonesia, outside of Papua that is, also descended from Proto-Malayo-Polynesian. So at their core, Malay and Tagalog are related, though they've been diverging from each other for at least 4,000 years, and maybe much longer. During that time, they've developed their own features and have undergone different influences.
So before, our first humans came from the Taiwan from the Philippines going to Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei until they make a proto-malayo-polynesian. So that's why some Filipino words and Indonesian words and other words in Malaysia and Brunei are like very similar to each other. That's why it's like we have the same ancestry, but we cannot understand each other because of the different branches of the words that have been developed through time. So let's proceed.
Influences on Malay. Sanskrit had a heavy influence on Malay vocabulary and literature beginning in the 7th century,
Yes, we
followed
have
by
many
Arabic in the
words
14th
here
century
that
once
are
Islam was
Sanskrit,
established
like
in the
Maharlika.
archipelago. Later on, Malay was influenced by English in British colonial territories and Dutch in the Dutch colonial territories. Modern Indonesian, which began to be called Indonesian only in 1928,
Modern
contains
Indonesian
more Dutch influence,
contains
while
more
Malay
Dutch
in Malaysia,
influence.
Brunei, and Singapore contains more English influence. Influences on Tagalog. One of the major influences on Tagalog was actually Malay, which served as a lingua franca throughout maritime Southeast Asia for centuries. So some of the similarities between Malay and Tagalog stem from their ancient common origin, and some of their similarities stem from the more recent influence of Malay on Tagalog. Then the Spanish arrived in Philippines in 1521 and
Yes.
left a massive footprint on Tagalog and other Filipino languages. What percentage of Tagalog words come from Spanish? Estimates range from 20% to 33%. This
To be honest with you guys, Tagalog was influenced by Malay, but until Spain comes to the Philippines to colonize this country, that's why we have certain words that are, for example, la mesa in Tagalog, it's the meaning of the word is table in English, but in Spain, mesa means table, and cocina in Philippines, in Filipino Tagalog is kitchen, and in Spain, cocina also, and the meaning of cocina in Spain is kitchen also. So there are 20% and 33% massive footprint of Spanish words to the Tagalog vocabularies because we once colonized by Spain.
definitely accounts for a lot of the difference in vocabulary between Tagalog and Malayan Indonesian. Philippines also became a colony of the United States for several decades, beginning in 1898, and as a result, English is the second official language of Philippines, and Tagalog has many
That's why
borrowings
we
from
can
English.
speak English.
Since I'm focusing on Indonesian for the
By the way, that's why we can speak English here in the Philippines because in our academic system or educational system, from kinder up to grade 12 up to college, we are the education are still teaching us some English words and phrases and constructive English sentences. That's why we can speak English fluently. And yeah, we were once a insular country. I mean, we once colonized by Americans also. That's why Americans bought the Philippines from Spain because they want to colonize the Philippines before. But Americans are kind before, that's why they give us freedom after World War II. That was July 4th, 1945.
examples, I'm simply going to refer to it as Indonesian from now on, rather than saying Indonesian and Malay all the time. Generally speaking, Indonesian and Tagalog are fairly different in terms of grammar and sentence structure. In terms of pronunciation, they're quite similar. Stop consonants in both Indonesian and Tagalog are unaspirated, meaning that there's no puff of air after the consonant, the way there often is after p, t, and k in English. They both also lack v and th sounds, except for a small number of loan
Yes,
words, but many
V, we
speakers will
convert
pronounce
V
them as
into
v
B
and
and
p.
F into P.
They also have similar sets of vowels. Tagalog has 5.
Yes.
A, E, I, O, U. And Indonesian has 5 vowel letters, but with 6 sounds, because E is pronounced 2 ways, either as or as a schwa. In terms of vocabulary, the majority of words are different, but there are also many similar words, including many common basic core words. For example, some personal pronouns and family vocabulary are similar. The words for I,
Aku,
Ako,
Ako,
you, singular,
engkau, kau,
ikaw, ka,
ka,
we,
kami,
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 kita,
kita,
In
Kita.
Indonesian, this is we, including the listener, and in Tagalog, this means me to you, or we in the dual, you and me together.
Oh, it's also
Child.
similar.
anak,
Anak.
Anak.
Male.
lelaki, laki-laki,
Lalaki.
Lalaki.
There are also numerous words related to household and everyday life. Bowl,
mangkuk,
Mangkok.
Mangkok.
mosquito net.
kelambu,
Kulambo.
Kulambo.
You'll notice that oftentimes where there's an U sound in one language, there will be an O sound in the other.
Kulambo.
Door,
pintu,
Pinto.
Pinto.
Pintuan.
table.
meja,
Galing.
Mesa.
The
I mean,
Tagalog
it's
word is a
amazing.
Spanish loan, and they also say
Yes,
La mesa.
also
the Indonesian
earlier.
and Malay word is
Mesa.
also a loan from Portuguese, mesa. Ladle,
In mesa, we usually put la mesa, because of our grandmother saying that before when I was a kid, like put that food on on la mesa or on the table. So, but here they use mesa. But usually in a Filipino household, we put la in the beginning of the word, on the word. That's why sometimes we call it la mesa, sometimes we call it mesa, but it's the same.
sendok,
Sandok.
and in Malay and Indonesian, this also means spoon. Nature words, rock or stone,
batu,
Bato.
Bato.
wind,
angin,
Hangin.
Hangin.
sky.
langit,
Langit.
Fire.
Langit.
api,
Apoy.
You'll
Apoy.
notice that E at the end of a word in Malay and Indonesian sometimes corresponds to oi in Tagalog. Pig,
babi,
Baboy.
crocodile,
buaya,
Buwaya.
It's
numbers
similar,
and
like
units of
ang
time,
crocodile.
moon or month,
bulan,
Buwan.
Buwan.
week.
minggu,
Linggo.
The Tagalog word comes from the Malay word, and the Malay word is from Portuguese domingo. Year,
tahun,
Taon.
Taon.
4,
4,
Apat.
5,
5,
Lima.
6,
6,
Anim.
Anim.
1,000.
ribu,
Libo.
Libo.
Parts of the body, eye,
mata,
Mata.
face,
muka,
Mukha.
Mukha.
brain.
otak,
Utak.
Utak.
Basic states and emotions, hope,
asa,
Asa.
Asa.
sick or sickness,
sakit,
Sakit.
Sakit.
delicious.
sedap,
Sarap.
Sarap.
In Tagalog, this is the most common word you see in
Yes.
advertisements
It's very
and so on.
common.
In Indonesian, enak is more common. To be
Enak.
afraid,
takut,
Takot.
Takot.
to laugh,
tawa,
Tawa.
Tawa.
selamat,
safety.
Salamat.
In Tagalog, its basic meaning is thank you, whereas in Malay and Indonesian, it's often used in greetings like selamat pagi.
It's a greeting.
meaning
it's
good
not
morning.
Thank you.
Other basic verbs, to read,
baca,
Basa.
Basa.
enter.
masuk,
Pasok.
Pasok.
It's worth pointing out that m and p are both bilabial sounds. They are both articulated with your lips together, so it would be easy for one sound to gradually change into the other. To drink,
minum,
Inom.
to open,
buka,
Buka.
to help.
tolong,
Tulong.
Of course, I've been intentionally pointing out words that are similar, but I want to be clear that most words are not the same. So let's look at some sentences in either language so that we can compare their sentence structures, but we can also see a more representative sample of their vocabulary in general. These sentences mean, my child likes cats. First in Indonesian,
anakku suka kucing,
word for word it's, child, my, like cats. And in Tagalog,
Mahilig ang anak ko sa mga pusa.
word for word it's, like, focus marker, child, my, to, plural marker, cat. One part here seems similar,
anakku,
Anak ko.
Anak
but we
ko,
could change this
anak
word
ko.
here, pusa, to,
Kuting.
which means kitten. Then the sentences would be even more similar. We can see that Indonesian is basically SVO at its core, SVO. Tagalog is basically VSO, but another way to think of it is as predicate subject, because it's not always a verb in this position. In fact, this word here, mahilig, is not actually a verb, it's an adjective meaning fond of. But a verb would appear here in the same position. Basically, these two pieces of the sentence are reversed in Indonesian and Tagalog. That's the more common and natural word order in Tagalog, but there's also an inverted word order that's more similar to Indonesian, but is generally considered less natural and is used less often.
Ang anak ko ay mahilig sa mga kuting.
The subject here
Ang anak ko
comes at the beginning, followed by the inversion marker I, followed by the predicate. This is less common and more formal, but probably more intuitive for an Indonesian speaker and for English speakers as well.
Yes. I
Notice that
is
the
like
Tagalog sentence
connecting
has this word that the Indonesian sentence doesn't have, ang, a focus marker. This
The
comes before
anak
the
ko
focus of the sentence,
to
whether it's
mahilig.
the subject or the object. Another thing the Indonesian sentence doesn't have is a plural marker, like mga. In Indonesian, the plural can be shown with reduplication, like,
kucing-kucing,
but it's not always used. Of course, Indonesian also lacks an inversion marker, like the word I in Tagalog. In general, Tagalog features more little function words and particles than Indonesian does, especially Standard Indonesian. Colloquial Indonesian has some more little words like that. Verbs. One difference between Indonesian and Tagalog verbs is that in Indonesian they have no conjugations for tense or aspect, while Tagalog verbs are conjugated for aspect, though neither language has different conjugations for person and number. Let's look at a quick example with Indonesian masuk
Masuk.
and Tagalog pasok, meaning enter. These sentences mean he entered the school. In Indonesian
dia masuk ke sekolah,
and in Tagalog.
Pumasok siya sa
Pumasok siya sa
eskwelahan.
eskwela.
In the Tagalog verb, there's an infix, which is used for completed actions. But there's nothing like that in the Indonesian verb. If we want to talk about an action that's happening now, like he's entering the school, it's like this. In Indonesian
dia sedang masuk ke sekolah,
and in Tagalog,
Pumapasok siya sa eskwelahan.
if we want to talk about an action that hasn't happened yet, like he will enter the school, it's like this. In Indonesian
dia akan masuk ke sekolah,
and in Tagalog,
Papasok
Papasok.
siya sa eskwelahan.
Yes.
notice that in Indonesian, the verb itself doesn't change, but rather an aspect marker comes before the verb, and it may be left out if the context makes it clear already. In Tagalog, the verb itself is inflected differently. You may also notice that some of the Tagalog inflections are infixes. In the first case,
By the way, Filipino words are like, we call that may lapi. We call that panlapi. It's like we are using to have a particular meaning on the same word to project some different meanings, like pumasok, it's entered, pumapasok, entering the school, and papasok, will enter the school.
and in the second case, there's a doubling of the first syllable followed by the infixing of Indonesian verbs do not have infixes. There are numerous prefixes and suffixes which change the meaning of the verb in different ways, for example, by making it transitive or causative or passive, but there's nothing for tense or aspect. Actor focus and patient focus. In Tagalog, verbs are either actor focus or patient focus. That means they have different conjugations depending on whether the focus of the sentence is on the doer of the action or the receiver of the action. For example, the student read a science book.
Bumasa ang estudyante ng libro sa agham.
This is actor focus, so the focus is on the student, the doer of the action.
Binasa ng estudyante ang libro sa agham.
A student read the science book. This is patient focus, so the focus is on libro, the receiver of the action.
By the way, guys, we don't particularly use agham. We use signs because agham is like too formal for us, but agham literally means signs also.
You can see that the verb inflections that are infixed to the root are different for actor focus and patient focus. You can also see that there are two words that are switched in either sentence, ang and nang. Ang is the in-focus marker, and nang is the out-of-focus marker.
Yes.
As a
that's
quick
right.
side note, I should point out that the noun with the in-focus marker, ang, is often interpreted as definite, whereas the noun with the out-of-focus marker is often interpreted as indefinite. But definiteness can be changed by adding additional words, like isang, meaning one, and it can also be understood from context based on what has been previously mentioned. Indonesian doesn't exactly have actor focus and patient focus like Tagalog does. It does have something similar but simpler, a distinction between subject focus and object focus. Subject focus is the basic type of sentence, like this sentence meaning a student read a science book.
mahasiswa membaca buku sains.
Technically, Indonesian has no definite or indefinite articles, so the nouns here could also be considered definite, but we could more explicitly express definiteness by adding nya, which means it's, to either noun or to both.
Mahasiswanya membaca buku sainsnya.
Or you could use the demonstrative pronoun itu, meaning that. Object focus usually places the object first.
Buku sains dibaca mahasiswanya.
A science book was read by the student. Alternatively, this could be
Buku sains yang dibaca mahasiswanya.
a science book is what the student read. Notice that in Indonesian, there are no markers that show focus or lack of focus like there are in Tagalog. We usually know whether it's subject focus or object focus based on which one comes first. In an object focus sentence in the third person, the prefix D attaches to the verb. But in the first and second person, any prefix is dropped from the verb.
Buku sains yang saya baca.
A science book is what I read. Notice that the verb baca doesn't have its usual prefix because the sentence is object focus, and it doesn't have the prefix di because that's only for third person. In Tagalog, all the personal pronouns are different depending on whether they are in focus or out of focus. The out of focus ones are actually genitive pronouns because they're also used as possessives. In Indonesian, most personal pronouns are the same regardless of whether they are the focus of the sentence or not. As you can probably see, Tagalog on the one hand and Indonesian and Malay on the other clearly have some similar features that show that they are related, such as their similar pronunciation and similar core basic vocabulary. But it's also obvious that they have diverged so much that they are not mutually intelligible with each other, partly because of their different sentence structure and partly because of their largely different vocabulary. It's worth remembering that Tagalog is just one language of the Philippines, and that there are many languages spoken in Indonesia and Malay-speaking countries like Malaysia and Brunei as well. Tagalog and Malay and Indonesian are not necessarily the two most similar languages from those countries. The question of the day: for speakers of Tagalog and Malay and Indonesian, how well do you understand speakers of the other language? Do you understand anything? Do you recognize some words when you hear the other language? Let us know in the comments down below. If you're interested in learning Indonesian or Filipino, I recommend you click the link in the description to check out Indonesian Pod 101 or Filipino Pod 101. They have hundreds of audio and video lessons with full transcripts for students of all levels. Sign up for a free account, and to everyone, thank you for watching and have a nice day.
Wow. So here I will answer his question. Do I recognize some words? Yes, I can recognize some Indonesian words to Tagalog, but I cannot wholly understand the construction of their basic sentences. Especially, Indonesian sentences are like kind of similar for English construction, but in the Philippines we have like in focus to the person and out focus person. So yeah,
A few moments later.
so this video is a very long video, so I have learned so much in this video. So thank you, Mr. Muhammad, for suggesting this video, and credits also to the YouTube channel of Langfocus, and to his video. It's very informative. Like he explained very detailed about the Indonesian and the Filipino language. But my thoughts about this video is there are some words that are very similar, but there are some words that have different there are different words but have the same meaning, and the only changes for the Tagalog and Indonesian is the construction of sentences. Just like here in the Philippines, we usually use panlapi or on the word just to divert the different meaning of the word that we want to say to other people. And Indonesia just add some words also, but they have like similar to English construction of sentences. So I have learned so much here in this video, and I am kind of amazed because we have the same meaning of words and the same spelling of words here in our region, and I am very happy to know this information about the how similar are Tagalog and Indonesian words. in our times. So that's it, that's my reaction guys. Before I end this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell beside the subscribe button to be notified for my future video uploads. And also don't forget to follow me on my Instagram account. I will put it down here. If you have any suggestions, just DM me on my Instagram and or comment on my YouTube videos and I will look for it and maybe I will do it in the future. So if you have enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe and thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video. Peace out. Bye guys.